that we get healthy and nutritious food for ourselves and also for the children. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
All right,
Thank
so
you for having me.
it's always great to have you here. I think we were talking during the break, and I was telling you about how I've seen social media flooded with people making their own immunity boosters at this time. And you were telling me that, in fact, you know some COVID-19 positive people who are, in fact, using this as a way to minimize their symptoms. So let's
Yes,
start with that. What are some of the foods that are really great in being able to help to boost your immunity?
yes. Surprisingly, a lot of several of the patients that have turned out positive for COVID-19 are able to manage their symptoms with simple remedies.
Mm-hmm.
And it includes the same remedies that Dr. Natalia just mentioned about using the ginger, the honey, limes, garlics, and even different types of teas like the fever grass tea
Mm-hmm.
that has been shown to not only manage their cold, but also helps them cope with their breathing problems as well.
Wow.
So instead of buying expensive supplements, we see that these simple and easy remedies can help you with managing the symptoms of COVID.
Okay, well, that is great to hear. I know some people who swear by their ginger and garlic, definitely honey when you talk about coughing. So that's one of the things that I know people would be happy to hear. But today we're broadening the conversation about nutrition and being sure that we're getting healthy food, not just for ourselves, but also for the children who are at home. And Doris, you say that this all starts way before we start to eat. It starts from when you go to the supermarket.
Mhm.
Tell us
Yes.
about that.
Okay, so right now, even though we are in a lockdown, grocery shopping still remains a necessity during this pandemic. So many people have to find a way how to do it safely. And before we get into the recommendations on how to do your grocery shopping safely, it is very important that we make clear that there is no evidence that COVID-19 can be spread through the contact with food or food packaging. Okay,
Hmm.
this is something that the Centers of Disease Control has already established,
Yeah.
that it is not a foodborne virus, but we still need to be able to practice good hygiene when handling food to prevent any other type of foodborne illness.
Okay. So that's
Okay,
a good
so
starting point. Mm-hmm.
yes, so before we go to the grocery store, it's recommended that we prepare a shopping list in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we want to buy just what we would need for 1 to 2 weeks at a time. Since buying a lot more than what we can consume during that period of 1 to 2 weeks, we can lead to a lot of temporary shortages, which is something that we experienced about a week or 2 weeks ago with certain products. Okay,
Okay.
another point would be trying to purchase your groceries during hours when there are fewer people in the store. Okay, we know that there are peaks of time like between 12 and 1 where we see a lot more people at the supermarkets, or between 5 and 7 where we see the supermarkets loaded with a lot of people. So if you're able to go at a time earlier than that, then that would minimize the amount of people being present in the store.
Yeah. I mean, I
Okay,
think the tradition is usually Saturday morning. Everybody goes
so the
shopping on
morning as
Saturday
well.
morning. So you
Yes,
want to avoid the crowded times. So space
crowded
it out
time.
some other time during the week.
Yes. And another important point is that if you're seeing an aisle that is crowded with people, you may want to go to another aisle where there are fewer people and then return to where you started, so
Mm-hmm.
that you are able to maintain that social distancing and to be able to keep those 6 feet in between the people that are buying and also the employees that are present at the store.
Okay.
Okay. Before we enter, we know it is important that we wash our hands or disinfect them before we enter the store.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, we see people even carrying their own wipes to disinfect the handles or the shopping cart or even the baskets before they go into the store. Since a majority of them are not are cleaning the areas or the shopping carts that they use. Also, if you're using a reusable bag, which is the ideal way to shop, then you want to make sure that every time you use that reusable bag, that that bag is cleaned and washed before each use. Okay, because sometimes we would use a reusable bag, but then we go to the store and we come home and then we go back with the same bag without properly disinfecting it. So that would be another recommendation
Okay.
there.
And what do you do? Just wipe it down with bleach and water?
Yes, you could either wipe it down or wash it in the laundry or but what you want is that after you disinfect it, that you put it in an area where it could dry completely before you can go ahead and use it.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
So as we were mentioning that there is no evidence of food packaging being associated with transmission of COVID-19, this even is important for fruits and vegetables because we don't really need to disinfect all the products once we get home.
yeah,
However, this is just a precautionary measure that we can always take if you're willing to disinfect and clean all your ingredients.
yeah,
But what you do not want to disinfect is like fruits and vegetables. Okay, you don't want to put chemicals on these in order to disinfect them, since ingesting these chemicals can be more dangerous
yeah. So
and
I
than
wanted
just.
you to explain that a bit further because I know that, we've all done it. We get home with your bags from the grocery store. You want to wipe everything down. You feel worried that somehow you're bringing the virus into your house. So what does the research actually say about this?
Okay. Well, the research says that you can't get COVID-19 from the packages or from the product itself. What you can get it is from contact from person to person, or as the research has been mentioning, by the contact with the droplets from a person that is not wearing a mask properly or that is not washing their hands properly.
Okay.
So when we get home with our groceries, you can disinfect them as an extra precautionary measure, but it is not something that you need to do every time.
Okay.
Okay, but well, of course, when you go and you open a package, or if you go and you cut your vegetables, your fruits, they need to be washed and cleaned as we would do in any other circumstance. And when we open canned goods, well, of course, we want to dust them down before using it. But we do not need to disinfect each product every time we come from the store.
So now let's start looking at that grocery list itself. You said you should ideally be looking at 1 week to 2 weeks worth of groceries. And what are some of the ideal things that you would tell people to consider to be picking up to take home to cook?
Okay. Well, it would depend on the number of people in the household, but most importantly, you want to try to get foods that are non-perishable, meaning that you'd want them to have a little longer shelf life. For example, if you get fruits and vegetables, you want to get a variety, but you may want to choose some that are ripe and some that are non-ripe in order for you to have them last a longer life. Okay, when you get canned goods, it's not really recommended to consume only canned food. However, if it is the only thing that you can purchase, then you'd want to read the labels and identify foods that would have, for example, less sodium, less fat. Okay, when you go to the store, you want to try to also look for things that are whole grains. You want to make sure you pack things with a lot of protein. There are many good sources of plant-based proteins that we can get, like from beans, from nuts, from seeds, that we don't necessarily have to get our protein from the chicken or from the fish, which at this point could be a little bit more costly for some family members.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we do want to make sure we have is a variety of fruits, a variety of vegetables, any type of beans or seeds that would have protein, and a lot of whole grain sources.
Okay. Now you're saying to reduce your amount of time going into the store, going to the store, and the amount of time you spend in the store, that the list helps because then you have an idea of what you have to pick up. Because there are two types of shoppers: the ones like me that go through every aisle and try to remember what you need, and those who kind of just get in and get out. And given our pandemic, we know getting in and getting out is the best option.
Yes, at this time we do have to prepare a shopping list.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to try to, instead of when we usually would go and we would touch the vegetables and see if it's ripe, we have to start to practice being more visual
Yeah.
with our products instead of going and touching something that we know we probably will not take. So this is something we need to start to practice maybe even at home, so that when we're out there buying, we only go and select the things that we need.
Yeah.
And well, like you mentioned, having a list will allow you to only go through certain aisles and necessarily go through all the store before we exit.
And what about perishable goods? We know fruits, vegetables, those won't last very long. I know your recommendation is that you can freeze them.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
tell us about that.
once you purchase your fresh fruits and vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
you want to freeze a batch before it starts to ripe. Because once you freeze it, once it's already ripe, it won't necessarily last too long in the fridge. So let's say if you buy a cantaloupe or a papaya that is fresh and you know you can only eat half of one
Mm-hmm.
in 1 week. So the other half you want to freeze it from the moment that you start chopping them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and the same thing goes for vegetables. Let's say if you buy a big batch of carrots, you can't eat it all in 1 week. So you want to freeze them before they start to get ripe.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about some of the healthier options as to what you can get. So the kids are home, and I know a lot of parents are stacking up on snacks and junk food because that's what they would have at break time at school. How do you get them to even want to eat the banana versus the chips that's in the house?
Okay. So in that case, we know that with children, we need to start from an early age in order for them to actually accept a healthy meal.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, if we start giving our children after the breastfeeding, if we start giving them processed foods like Gerber or anything that's store-bought, instead of giving them the actual fruit or the actual vegetable, it is very unlikely that they would want to accept it 1 year later. So it's something that we want to start at an early age, practicing giving them these fresh whole foods. Now, children that are already 2 or 3 years old or even older and are not used to having these foods, studies have shown that they could take up to 5 or 10 times to actually accept the food. So it's something that parents need to continue giving or providing to them in order for them to actually accept it in the long run.
Okay. Mm. And what are some of the healthy snacks that you recommend that parents can put in the house for the children that are home?
Children often need to eat a snack or two in order to keep their energy levels going.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than giving children sweets or salted snacks, we want to prefer healthier sources like nuts, cheese, yogurt. If they don't really like chopped fruits, we could give them dried fruits or frozen fruits or any other treat that would include any of the ingredients that we just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
We know that foods that are more healthy or provide more nutrients are more nutritious, they are more filling for them, and they can benefit them for a lifetime. Not only right now because we need to boost our immune system, but it's something that we want to start as early as possible so that children, when they get older, that they have a lower risk of many communicable diseases.
Mm-hmm. Now, you, if I already have introduced all this food to my child, and let's be fair, we all give kids some level of junk food, ice cream, we all loved it as kids. If I want to help to introduce new and healthier options, is there any recommendation as to how to do so to adjust their palates?
Normally, yes, you can add other healthy sources like we've seen some parents adding natural honey to things like pineapple or maybe even bananas. Then we see people adding a little bit of cinnamon or a little touch of peanut butter or granola, something that could add a little bit of sweetener
Mm-hmm.
to the fruit. Once it's the more natural,
Mm-hmm.
the better. And we also see that parents have to be incorporating these vegetables with other foods or kind of um, chopping them into very small pieces so that it's not really visible. We see that creating healthy shakes with a little bit of honey or natural seasoning is also a way in which children could accept these snacks even better.
Yeah. And we all want to be eating a bit healthier at this time. This is the recommendation for adults as well, that we should be eating healthier. How does the food that we eat affect our immune system?
The least amount of vegetables or fruits, which is where most of our nutrients are or most of our vitamins are, the weaker our immune system becomes. So if we don't get these foods, not only in children but also as adults, our immune system is not as strong in order to be able to fight COVID or any other type of disease. So we've seen also that not necessarily here, I'm not sure yet, but in other parts of the country where people do follow a healthy lifestyle, meaning that they eat a lot healthier, they exercise, okay, they at some point in their life they have lost weight, they have an even better immune system and are able to fight a lot of diseases. They contact with COVID and they don't even have any of the existing symptoms that we see are
Yeah.
present in patients with COVID. So you could probably go with it and never know because your immune system is strong enough in order for you not to develop any of the symptoms mentioned.
And for COVID positive patients, it's also a recommendation that they eat healthier as well, because this can impact their recovery from the disease. So, this would also be key for people to get in more vegetables and fruits and hydrate when they have already been diagnosed, right?
Yes, exactly.
What's the
Normally,
impact that it would have if you continue with an unhealthy diet versus getting in that fruit and veg and water?
okay. Yeah, if you continue with not having the necessary nutrients that our body needs or not having enough water, we can not only lead to weakening in the immune system, but eventually we can start to gain weight. We know that weight gain is the basis of many of the developing diseases that are very common here in Belize,
Yeah.
especially diabetes, high blood pressure. We see high cholesterol. Okay, Dr. Natalia just talked about the risk of having gestational diabetes if women don't lose weight before pregnancy. Okay, so there are many, many risk factors that can be present from not having a healthy diet at an early age.
So it's also a good time to try to lose some weight, and you do that with food. From your experience, and I know you work with a wide range of clients. They contact you, you consult with them about changing diets. What's one of the effective ways to start to get on the right track for healthy eating? Because we know that in Belize, we don't consume as much vegetables as we should in our diets. If you look at your rice and beans plate, it's minimal in terms of vegetable intake. So, what has worked for you in the past with your clients in getting them to that phase where they're eating healthier?
Okay. Yeah, well, what I see has worked is first of all, changing the mentality of following a diet. Because when we think about diet, we sometimes think about having to cut out a specific food group, like not eating flour anymore, or not eating rice, or giving up the sodas completely. Okay, those are things that not can only affect your goals, but in the long term, if you have achieved your goals, you can tend to fall back and regain them all over because we're restricting ourselves from things that we like. And in order for us to be able to actually achieve our goals, we want to not only restrict some foods, not really eliminate them, but we also want to be doing it in a good way, meaning that we want to be happy while we're doing it. We want to enjoy the foods that we eat. We want to feel comfortable when we're in a public area. So instead of restricting specific food groups, we just want to be able to control our portions and see how many servings we're having for the day. And for example, if you're used to having your 2 cups of rice and beans at midday, maybe cut down to 1 cup.
Yeah.
And if you're used to only having 3 sodas for the day, maybe that you'd want to cut to 2 times for the week. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily eliminating the things that we like, but it's knowing how to manage it and create a balance with the other things that we should be eating.
Okay. All right. Any final advice to parents out there about getting in that healthy food?
Yes. Well, for parents, we do need to encourage children to eat a lot healthy. As a parent or a caregiver, it is very important that we offer the children these healthy foods, and since they will be the one deciding how much they can eat. But if we don't offer it to them, then we would not be promoting the child's adequate growth and development.
All right.
So we don't want to get discouraged if the child does not want to eat it in the first instance. Instead, we want to try to prepare it different ways. We want to offer it often. We want to put it on the table and not only give your child a healthy food, but you want to practice it as a family in order for them to be able to accept it
Yeah.
even faster and better.
All right. Well, we thank you for sharing these tips with us. And of course, we know that you're very active on social media. You offer quite a bit of advice on your Facebook page. How can people find you?
I have a Facebook page called Nutritionists in Belize.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be active at least 2 or 3 times a week in order to share information.
Yeah.
But of course, if anybody has any specific information that they want to ask about COVID, about diabetes, or about their weight, well, they could always send me a message and I'd answer them.
All right. Thank you so much, Doris.
You're welcome.
All
Have a
right.
good day.
You too, and stay safe.
Bye.
With that, we are going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back from talking about the healthy food that kids can eat to some of the cool new shows that they can watch. We're going to be talking about a special children's program after the break. So please stay tuned.